Please come to order and find a place to sit. There's some seats on my left and on my right. I'd like to recognize Dorothy Jessup for a greeting. Dorothy, the organizer of this event.
Hello, everybody. It's so wonderful to see you all here, and really unbelievable. This event was planned originally for this evening with one candidate as a speaker, and it sort of morphed into a debate with both of the speakers, and we thought we'd never get enough audience at this hour, and now we're just overflowing from people outside who still want to get in, so maybe a few people can come and take those extra seats. I wanted to just welcome all of you and introduce our moderator, Jerry Benjamin. We're very anxious to have this event go very smoothly and courteously and politely so that our candidates will want to come back. The winning candidate will want to come back to debate the Republican in the fall. So let's make this a very desirable and pleasant event for all concerned. And Jerry Benjamin,
I've got this,
former dean of mine, so I welcome you here.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy. I've got this. Okay, thank you, and thanks to Woodland Pond for this event. Woodland Pond is a very valued neighbor in New Paltz. I have a mic right here. No, this mic is for the radio. Oh. This mic is for me, you to hear me. Am I not loud enough? I'll hold this. Is this better? Okay, Woodland Pond's a valued neighbor in New Paltz, and we're very pleased at the university to be able to support this event. Let me do a little background, 2 minutes, reminding the candidates of the purpose of this event. This is to mention a couple of ground rules. The purpose of this event is in particular to inform the people of Woodland Pond who are preparing to vote in the coming primary. They're interested in knowing a few things in particular. For example, what issues candidates regard as especially important in the coming 2 years, why each considers himself best qualified to serve in Congress, which candidate believes themselves to be best qualified to compete effectively against the Republican candidate, and why, and what their priorities will be, what the residents of this community can expect will be the priorities of each candidate if and when elected to Congress. A tight time frame. We have a timekeeper here who's extraordinarily demanding and for whom I work, and she's going to hold up time limits, and I've reminded each candidate that we're going to be adhering to these limits. We are going to proceed in the following manner. I am going to ask, there are 5 questions. We're going to devote the first hour to responding to these questions. I'm going to ask them as I have them before me. We're going to give copies to the candidates so they can have written versions of the questions as they're asked. They can open them so we don't have to repeat the questions. We'll allow time for each to speak. They'll take turns speaking first, and at the end of an hour we will wrap up that part of the program and take questions from the audience, and at that time I'll remind the audience of the process for asking questions. We're expecting civility, and we want the people to restrain themselves from applause or expressions of reaction or opinion during the course of this debate, and we'll have the time to acknowledge people at the end of the event. There is literature from each candidate outside, and I would remind them to talk in the interest of communicating effectively, to talk within the time limit, but also to speak reasonably slowly so people can understand and hear the points so they don't have to be repeated. So if we have the questions, I'm going to proceed. So these written questions are simply for the convenience of avoiding repetition of the question. The first question, and you can please open up one more, number one. Oh yes, the first opportunities for introductory comments by the candidates for a few minutes, for three minutes each. So we'll start with Mr. Schreibman, and then we'll go to Mr. Tyner. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you for moderating us today. Joel, thank you for joining me. And thank you to all the folks here at Woodland Pond for giving us this wonderful forum and opportunity to speak to you about the issues. My name is Julian Schreibman, and I am an Ulster County native. I grew up near Woodstock and was raised by my dad, who is a World War II veteran, who didn't even have a chance to finish high school, but got to pursue his passion for art on the GI Bill. And my mom, who's with us today, who is an immigrant, who came to this country in the late 1960s, and whose small business, dance school, supported my family growing up. I graduated from Kingston High School and was blessed to be the first in my family to go to college. Getting to do that not just by studying, but through a lot of help and mentorship and all the ways that kids get to live the American dream, qualifying for a Pell Grant, borrowing Stafford loans, and working in any job I could get year-round. I've spent most of my career in public service. I was an attorney at the Central Intelligence Agency, and I was privileged to work on a case called the United States versus Osama bin Laden, the prosecution of 4 members of Al-Qaeda for bombing our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. I became a federal prosecutor myself, and then when I moved home to this area, was an assistant district attorney in Ulster County, working on every issue of public safety that can arise in rural communities. I got to live the American dream. And I'm running for Congress because increasingly, that dream is farther and farther out of reach for young people. And that's not an accident of history. It's not the result of forces that are beyond our control. It's the result of decisions and choices in Washington to favor bankers and billionaires over middle-class folks in communities like ours. Republican Congressman Chris Gibson, the person we must meet in November, is a key part of that problem. Congressman Gibson voted to end Medicare as we know it and replace it with an underfunded coupon program. Voted to defund Planned Parenthood and make it harder for women to access necessary health services. Voted anti-choice every chance he had and has amassed a horrible environmental record, even in relation to other Northeast Republicans. I will beat Chris Gibson and make a 180-degree change in representation for our communities. I will support our kids in our local schools. I will support our farmers, unlike Chris Gibson, who's voted to slash tens of millions of dollars of assistance to farmers. Vote to support small businesses rather than cut aid to small businesses, as Congressman Gibson has done. And I will absolutely defend Medicare, Social Security, and women's access to needed health care. We need to end the Tea Party influence in this region, and I will do it.
Thank you. I'll remind the audience that we're refraining from applause during the course of the debate. We have a limited amount of time, and time will simply pass for the applause without the debate occurring. Mr. Tyner.
Check. I don't know if this is working. Check. Hello.
Joel, do you want my mic?
Check. Okay, I think it's working outside. My name is Joel Tyner. I'm a county legislator for Rhinebeck and Clinton. My name is Joel Tyner. I am a county legislator for Rhinebeck and Clinton across the river in Dutchess County. I've been a community activist for 20 years. I don't disagree with anything that Mr. Schreibman just said. I would just say that if you think about why we're here now in 2012, think about 2008 and think about 2010. We lost the majority in the House. The Democrats lost the majority in the House. And I would humbly submit to you that that's because the Democratic leadership, too much of the Democratic leadership, did not draw a strong enough distinction between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. People do not need to be hit on the heads to know that the banks got bailed out and we got sold out. And I voted for Barack Obama 4 years ago, and I'm voting and I'm campaigning for him this year but we cannot afford to have a Democratic candidate who's taking any money from Wall Street. We cannot afford to have a Democratic candidate who's taking any money from the insurance industry. I've been campaigning for this since last August. Again, I'm in the middle of my 5th term representing Rhinebeck and Clinton in the Dutchess County Legislature. Those are 2 towns that have long had Republican town supervisors. It's because of the goodness, kindness, and generosity in the hearts and souls of people in Dutchess County in March that we decided to allow Ulster County to be part of our congressional district. I just thought I'd lighten a little bit of levity. So my point is this: I have nothing personal against Julian. Okay, I've been campaigning since last August. He's been campaigning since January. But for instance, I think it's a stronger campaign to say no cuts to Medicare. And Chris Gibson took $46,000 from the insurance industry, and I'm not taking any money from the insurance industry. I don't know if Julian's made that pledge. I think it's a stronger campaign about Wall Street. For instance, in the early 90s, I worked with Maurice Hinchey on single payer for 2 decades. Lobbied him in Washington. Medicare for all would expand, save $400 billion a year. That's a stronger message than saying, well, let's allow the HMOs in the insurance industry to continue to flourish. I believe, and Maurice Hinchey is correct, let's bring back FDR's Glass-Steagall Act, let's bring up the big banks, too big to fail. I'm not taking any money from Wall Street. It's obvious that a lot of folks in the Democratic power structure think that Maurice Hinchey got elected so many times in spite of his taking on the powerful special interests. I'm telling you, he got elected so many times because he took on the powerful special interests.
Thank you, Mr. Tyner. Okay, now we will turn to the questions. So please open question number 1. Which actually directly references something I've just said. And I'll read the question so everybody can know it. Describe for us the new 19th Congressional District. What are the needs of this district, and how would you address these if elected? We'll start with Mr. Tyner.
We need jobs. Whoops. We need jobs. Maurice Hinchey is a member of the House Progressive Caucus. I have never said, for the record, that Maurice is supporting my campaign. I've never said that. But Maurice is a part of the House Progressive Caucus.
Go more slowly.
Sorry. So the House Progressive Caucus is supporting something called the Emergency Jobs to Restore the American Dream Act for the 99%. I would humbly submit to you that one reason why we're dealing with Chris Gibson and the Republicans in the House majority is because the Democrats did not put forward an ambitious enough stimulus plan. The Emergency Jobs to Restore the American Dream Act for the 99% would create 5 million jobs in 2 years, okay? By taxing Wall Street speculation, which is something I don't hear my opponent talking about, by taxing the wealthy, by taking away the subsidies for big oil, by taking away the subsidies for the corporations that are offshoring our jobs, okay? I think that too many folks in the Democratic power structure and the Republican power structure underestimate how frustrated people are, how skeptical they are. All right, and I really think that in order to beat Chris Gibson, I'm not blaming anybody in the room, but a lot of folks in the media have Chris Gibson, this sort of patina and this sheen and this gloss that, oh, he's an ordinary guy. He's not an ordinary guy. We need a Democratic candidate who's not taking any money from Wall Street, a Democratic candidate who's not taking any money from the insurance industry, and points out that Chris Gibson has taken $122,000 from Wall Street over the last couple of years, according to maplight.org and the FEC, and Chris Gibson has taken $46,000 from the insurance industry. I would also say that the last thing we need in the worst recession we've had in 70 years is a go-along, get-along Democrat who's not going to be willing to speak truth to power to Barack Obama. Barack Obama put $4 trillion in cuts on the table last year to domestic programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Join me today at 3:30 in front of the FDR site. We're rallying about that.
Okay, as I neglected to mention, I'm going to mention the amount of time for each person on each question because it's not the same depending on the complexity of the question. So this is a two-minute response. Mr. Chairman, please stand up.
Very good. I think we're right, so we can see everyone in all parts of the room. Thanks, Jerry. So let me answer the first part of that question just because I know this is a new district to so many people. So what we have in the new 19th Congressional District is a wonderful bringing together of the Hudson Valley and the Catskills in a way that gerrymandering has kept apart for generations in the past. So we now have a community of interest, and it has 2 important underpinnings: agriculture and small business. And those are the things that we need to focus on when we talk about bringing jobs, which is, in fact, the critical issue in terms of going to Washington and representing this community. And I'll note that Congressman Chris Gibson campaigned on making jobs his top priority. He said he would go to Washington and work on jobs. He hasn't found one jobs bill that he could vote for or co-sponsor. And if I were in his position and I didn't find a bill that I could support, I'd roll up my sleeves and write one. And he hasn't done that. So we do absolutely need to focus on investing and growing this economy here. We have a very rural district. Kingston is the largest city in this entire congressional district. So what do we do to invest and grow jobs in the economy here? Number one, we put the focus here, not on that Tea Party agenda that Chris Gibson is investing in. So we focus on support to agriculture, to support to small businesses. I grew up in a small business household. I know the struggles and the hurdles they face. And we also know that small businesses create 2/3 of all the jobs here. So we invest in those, and we do exactly what both Joel and I have been talking about, which is focus on reforming our tax code, making it work for the regular folks in these communities, and the Bush tax cut for the wealthiest, and the tax giveaways for companies that ship jobs overseas and compete unfairly against our jobs here at home, and that's the way we'll make this region thrive again.
Thank you. Now, you'll notice that I'm going to alternate the person who speaks first, which means that somebody will speak just after themselves. But on each issue, it's balanced and equitable, if you think about it. So we will get we'll seek a 2-minute response on this question, which is a direct follow-on to the question that we first asked, and that is, what national issues do you believe should be given top priority by the next Congress, and why? National issues. What particular issues would you take on first, and why? Mr. Schreibman.
Thank you. I think it was Tip O'Neill who said all politics is local. And so when we look at the national issues that are critically important to us, it's a continuation of the discussion that we just had. It's about having a thriving economy and bringing jobs back to everywhere in America, including this region that has struggled. Our economy went off a cliff in 2008, thanks to 8 years of lousy Republican economic policies that rewarded only those who were doing the best and only those who already had the advantages. And so when that economy fell off a cliff, those of us that were left behind have been struggling to get back to where we were. We live in a time of anxiety and uncertainty, and we need to alleviate that. Joel mentioned, and I'm very proud to say, we have FDR's home in this district. And I often think of FDR's 4 freedom speech: freedom from fear and freedom from want. Those are fears we haven't conquered. And so we need an economy that works for everyone. We need to address a tax system that rewards those who have had only the best and the most opportunity. We have a system that rewards the companies who ship jobs overseas and rewards those who have been receiving record profits, but contributing nothing towards our national well-being. So job number one is the economy. Job number one is putting our economy on a fairer foundation, a foundation that doesn't punish working class families and that instead rewards and gives them the kind of opportunities that I had growing up. So absolutely, the economy is job one.
Mr. Tyner.
I think we need, hello, check 1, check, hello, hello, plug 1, plug 2. Hello, 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 hello. Okay, hello, hello, okay, I'll use this one. I think one of the top things that we need to survive as human beings in this country and on this planet is clean drinking water. And last summer, Bill McKibben of 350.org and Greenpeace and the Citizens Environmental Coalition sent a letter to President Obama calling for an immediate national moratorium on hydrofracking. Unfortunately, the president was really promoting natural gas drilling and hydrofracking in the State of the Union address. Josh Fox, who made the Gasland film, which I have here, was on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman a week or so after that, talking about how ridiculous that speech was, about how, according to the fracking industry's own records and reports. 40% of the time, the well casings fail. The Duke University National Academy of Sciences came out with a report last May talking about how it's 1,700% more likely that methane is going to be in your drinking water well if it's within 1 mile of where fracking is taking place. So a lot of you may say, well, Joel, why are you talking about this governors? Oh, it's not a state issue. I mean, I believe the fracking should be banned statewide, but it's not it's a national issue. There should be a national moratorium. You know, April 17th, Julian told Alan Chartok, Alan asked about fracking. Julian said, well, in terms of the impact, I think the jury's still out. We don't know. We don't know about fracking. That's unacceptable.
To Dorothy's great dismay, we're going to depart from the schedule and give each person 1 minute to comment on the other person's remarks. Mr. Schreibman.
Perfect timing for that, thank you. Joel just spoke about fracking, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to be absolutely clear on this issue. I stand 100% with Maurice Hinchy when it comes to opposition to fracking. In fact, the day I announced my candidacy for Congress, before Mr. Tyner and I were even in the same congressional district, I raised that as one of the issues that motivated me to run and that I was committed to. So to me, absolutely, the evidence overwhelmingly with respect to fracking is that it should not be done in New York State because it is bad for our environment and bad for our economy. What I have repeatedly said, and I agree again with Congressman Hinchy, is that he has made great efforts that I support to continue to study. There are calls for study, there are studies in progress. We need to see those studies completed, and we need to add to the body of evidence. All that we have seen is absolutely clear that this is not something that we can build our economy on. And that's a very important point, and I'll end because I'm getting the cutoff. Thank you.
Mr. Tyner. 1 minute.
Hello? I think
Joel, mine has a pretty long cord. Why don't we just share this one?
All right. What's happening? I'm confused. No! Nobody's watching this, right? I know that Mr. Schreibman is now saying he's very strongly opposed to fracking. On April 17th on WAMC, Alan Chartok asked him, well, what do you think about the President's State of the Union address? And Julian said, well, I don't see a lot of space between his position and mine. You know, I've been running since last August. There are very powerful people in the Democratic power structure who warned me almost a year ago, don't touch this issue. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in fracking money almost took out Maurice. You know, I would just say this. There's a great quote from FDR. The economic royalists complain that we seek to overthrow the institutions of America. What they really complain of is that they seek to take away their power. We seek to take away their power. These economic royalists are unanimous in their hatred of me, and I welcome their hatred. I'm talking about the economic royalists who are pulling the puppet strings in too much of the Republican Party, and the economic royalists that are pulling the puppet strings in too much of the Democratic Party. I'm not taking one money. I'm saying frackers, bring it on. Insurance industry, bring it on. HMOs, bring it on. Big pharma, bring it on. Real estate developers, you know the list.
For a brief moment, I thought we were seeing the comedy and collaboration we so much need in Washington, but perhaps that will unfold. Question number 3, please open question number 3. You may stand for, I'm reading question number 3. You may stand for issues Democrats believe in and have the qualities Democrats seek in their congressional representative, but if you win this primary, you must still win the election to Congress. You will be running in a new congressional district against an incumbent Republican opponent who has formidable outside support. Assuming you win the primary, explain why you are confident you can win the election in November. Please discuss the political circumstances that support your confidence in your ability to win. Mr. Tyner. 3 minutes.
Hello? That's the one. Thank you.
Whoops.
I didn't mean to do that, I swear. Okay. Look, I'm going to share with you what I think many of you may know. I've been the underdog the last 5 times. I wasn't supposed to win in 2003 against Ed Haas, a liberal Republican county legislator. I wasn't supposed to win in 2005 against Joan Carbonaro. I wasn't supposed to win in 2007 against Ray Oberle, a Republican conservative town supervisor who had been elected 6 times in the town of Clinton. I wasn't supposed to win against Pat Deely. The Tea Party took out a lot of my friends in 2009. Julian's a good man. Julian was the Ulster County Democratic chair, ran this county's party in 2009. A lot of my friends did not know how to win. I knew how to win. I survived the Tea Party onslaught in 2009. With all due respect to Mr. Schreibman, under his leadership, the Ulster County Democrats lost the majority in 2009. All right? People want something different. Now I know many of you may be saying, okay, that's true, but not that different like you do. But all I'm saying is that I've had Republicans and conservatives and independents come up to me for the last decade to say, we believe in you. It's the same thing I've heard about Maurice. Everybody knows that Maurice will take on anybody, anytime, any day when it comes to it. And that's the quality, and I don't mean to sound like I'm too arrogant here, but I am running for Congress. That's the quality that I have. I'm not taking any money from Wall Street. Like, I did a lot of campaigning for Scott Murphy, did a lot of phone banking and canvassing. With all due respect, Julian reminds me a little bit too much. All right, there were talking points and memos, stuff on the internet about Scott Murphy playing footsie with Wall Street. Late April, there was a Times Herald Record article about Julian $100 grand out of his own money to fund the campaign and another $100,000 from investors, Wall Street, I would assume, the real estate industry and lawyers. People, if you think that if you're a little bit upset about the Democratic power structure, caving, compromising, and capitulating over and over again on issue after issue, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Yeah, there's something you can do about it. You can spend the next 7 days working to send this pain in the neck, SOB, troublemaker to Washington to turn Congress upside down, just like I turned the Dutchess County legislature upside down for the last 5 terms. By the same way that Henry Waxman released those reports, I've done the digging and filed FOIA requests and pointed out the legalized corruption, the pay-to-play, the campaign donations with the county contracts, the MTV contamination all over. People want somebody who's going to stand up for them fearlessly. That's what I am. I'm not taking 1 penny from Wall Street. Unfortunately, the Times Herald Record has already reported in late April that Mr. Schreibman has taken a bunch of money from investors. Put 2 and 2 together. We need a strong, all the Democrats across the country are running on protecting Medicare, and I've been campaigning since last year about protecting Planned Parenthood. But the stronger candidacy is the Main Street, not Wall Street effect.
Thanks, Jerry. Let's take a minute and set the record straight here. I don't know what Joel is talking about with respect to investors. What we have had is a tremendous outpouring of support from people who care about this region and want to make a difference here. Not in money from investors or from bankers or from the insurance industry, none of that. I think maybe you saw a contribution from someone on my list who works at Citibank. You know who that is? The best man at my wedding, who grew up here and cares about the community as much as I do. So let's talk about what we're doing to beat Chris Gibson and win this campaign. What you've heard from me, and the reason we're getting great support, is that I am a strong Democrat who believes absolutely in our principles and our values and is committed to being elected and serving these communities. We not only have the resources that are close to matching those of the incumbent, but that's just a part of the story. The fact is, we all know in this room that there will be an avalanche of unregulated corporate money flowing into competitive races like this as a result of the horrible decision in Citizens United that has just opened the floodgates to unregulated money. So we know we're up against financial forces that we need to compete against but would never match. So how do we do it instead? We build a movement and an organization that will be unmatched, and we are already doing it. My campaign has extraordinarily broad grassroots following across this massive 19th Congressional District. We are running phone banks in multiple counties. We recently reached more voters in our outreach than any congressional campaign in the Northeast United States. That's the level of organization we have to fight against that Republican machine. And we have support from across the community of folks who know that I am the champion for working people that can make a difference in Washington and draw that sharp distinction with the Tea Party agenda. That's why I'm backed by the American Nurses Association, who know my commitment to health care and support for access to health care. Why I'm backed by the Committee to Protect Social Security and Medicare, because they know of my commitment to support and defend Social Security and Medicare. Why I'm backed by Planned Parenthood, because of my commitment to women's health care issues. Backed by the Human Rights Campaign, because of my dedication to equal rights for all. These are not people who are backing me because they think I can win. They are backing me because we share the values and the strength and the ability to bring that message so that together we can all win, so that we can put together the broad-based popular campaign on the issues that make a difference to people's lives in this community and end the influence of the Tea Party. So we have a tremendous campaign being built, tremendous grassroots, tremendous number of volunteers, and I hope, frankly, a lot of you will join us and be a part of this so we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tyner, you want to make some 1-minute reaction to those remarks, or shall we proceed? We'll proceed. I'm going to go to question number 5 next, and then return to question number 4, which is quite general. So, question number 5, knowing the highly partisan, divisive state of Congress at this time, please tell us why you think you'd be able to make a difference. Why should we believe that you have the leadership skills to initiate legislation and convince others, many of whom disagree with you, to support your positions? Provide examples from your life that demonstrate your experience and successes, I presume, regarding building these majorities and coalitions. Mr. Schreibman.
Sure, thank you.
3 minutes. 3 minutes on this question.
You know, Congress is broken. Congress has now a 9% approval rating, which is abysmal and shows really a national shame for an institution that is the heart of our government to be so distrusted and so disliked. To me, taking the attitude from the beginning that we can't get anything done, that Washington is broken and can't be fixed, is the wrong way to start. The fact is, when you bring energy, when you bring passion and commitment, you can make a difference, absolutely, and in so many different ways. And let me highlight 2 important ways that I'll be making a difference. First of all, it's a focus on our communities and a focus on having the very best people here to respond when you need them. This is something that Congressman Hinchy and also Senator Gillibrand, former Congresswoman who used to represent half of this district, was so well known for. The most important thing and the first place that we can do is have the best possible constituent services. That has nothing to do with anyone else in Washington. It's about the person you send there to represent and their ability to surround themselves with quality, hardworking people across the district. Number 2, I've told you about my background as a prosecutor, as a person in the Department of Justice charged with looking fairly and objectively at difficult circumstances. And so I've had to do that in my life. I've had to sit down with victims of crimes and explain to them how the system may or may not be able to help them, may not be able to vindicate every need that they feel at this awful point in their lives. So I have spent my life, number 1, with a piercing search for the truth, and we should have more people in Washington with that experience and that attitude, as well as the ability to work with folks from all walks of life and ensure that they feel a part of things. And if any of you have received one of our pieces of literature, talks about my work with crime victims and the ability to empathize and bring them into a process that's entirely alien and foreign that they've been forced to participate in, and help bring them through it without re-victimizing them, giving them confidence and security. So that, in my personal life, I'm not a career politician. I'm not someone who's been in the belly of the beast with other career politicians. I'm a person with a career in nonpartisan public service, responsible for being that public servant that can work for everybody. That's the attitude that I bring. You can ask my mom, who's here. You can ask anyone who's known me for many years that I am a uniter. And that, combined with my ability to ensure that we have the best possible constituent services for everyone in this community, will make me a successful congressman regardless of who's in charge in Washington.
Joel. Jeez Louise.
Right. So nobody likes a bragging, arrogant idiot, but nobody likes an ineffective person. So I think the question is basically, can you prove to us that you can get things done and work across party lines? And there's a lot of proof in my political career. In 2004, I was one of 8 Democrats in the Dutchess County Legislature, 17 Republicans. I've gotten good at the inside-outside game, which is, I'm one of the biggest activists in Dutchess County, and there's also only 2 Democrats in the Dutchess County Legislature that have been elected 5 times in a row. Okay, myself and Barbara Jeter Jackson. So when Carolyn Madrid and I started working in early 2004 and finding out that homeless veterans were being turned away from shelter in Poughkeepsie, and homeless pregnant women were being turned away from shelter, month after month after month after month, we got actual real-life homeless people to testify at the Dutchess County Legislature monthly meetings, and at the end of that year, we got $100,000 added to the 2005 Dutchess County budget, earmarked for Hudson River housing, to make sure that those folks weren't turned away from shelter. That was with 8 Democrats in the Dutchess County Legislature and 17 Republicans. The Democrats in Rhinebeck told me to focus 2003 on the Greenway Pact. Why isn't Rhinebeck part of the Greenway? And so I focused on that, and soon after I won, Rhinebeck joined the Greenway, and about $160,000 in county funding came to Rhinebeck that was owed them. Believe it or not, and the media hasn't really reported a lot of this, but I've actually gotten the Republicans in the Dutchess County Legislature to vote unanimously for resolutions to move Dutchess County towards zero waste. Unanimously against jail expansion. Almost unanimously to send a message on Lyme disease and tick-borne disease victims to make sure that they're not cut off from antibiotics that they might need after 3 or 4 weeks. CambridgeEnergyAlliance.org. Check that out in Massachusetts. I actually got a ton of Republicans in the Dutchess County Legislature back in, I think, 2008 to vote for, and 2009 to vote for 2 different resolutions for an independent Dutchess Energy Alliance in Dutchess County to create green jobs. I had to say something else. I've been an activist for 20 years. I'm not going to stand here and lie to you and say that Annette Feinstein has endorsed my campaign, but she's right here, and it really galls me that there's a Democrat running for Congress that refuses to say he's for single payer. And I worked in the early 90s, 20 years ago, with Max Feinstein. I worked with Paul Miller. I worked with Connie Holland. They're not there anymore. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Paul Miller wrote speeches for Maurice Hinchey for many years. You have had an incredible congressman who's not been afraid to take on the HMOs and the insurance industry and big pharma and go for single payer, and I don't hear Julian talking about that. You're going to let that heritage die? It's up to you.
We'll come back to that. Finish. Okay, the current time is 6 minutes after 2, so we have one last prepared question, then I have a couple of other questions that I hope will bring us after 1, I should say. It's after 2 somewhere. So much for your belief, Dorothy, that I'm perfect. You were wrong. You were wrong about that. Thank you. Now, the question number 4 is, so I'm going to add a couple questions, and we'll still have plenty of time for audience questions as well. What do you think Congress should do to improve the U.S. economy? That's the 4th question, number 4. And I think, Joel, I think you're first. 3 minutes for each person.
NAFTA, we didn't have to, the American workers got the shaft up. I don't know if anybody remembers 2008, but both Barack and Hillary campaigning furiously in the Rust Belt to the Northeast. Oh, we're gonna stand up for you. So we got out of NAFTA, right? Oh no, wait a minute. Late last year, now we have this new free trade pact with Korea and Panama and Colombia, where in Colombia, where 98 trade unions were slaughtered recently. And Korea, we're going to lose another 151,000 jobs, and God knows how many hundreds of thousands of tax shelters in Panama. We've lost 5 million manufacturing jobs because of NAFTA over the last 15 years. 50,000 factories have shut their doors. We've lost 1/3 our manufacturing base. I'm asking you to work with me to send a troublemaker an effective troublemaker who's going to say, no, Barack, no, enough is enough. Because I don't know if you listen to Tom Hartman, he's one of the top progressive radio talk show hosts in the country. He wrote a book about rebuilding the country, 11 Ways to Reboot the United States. He points out that in 1981, we were the biggest exporter of manufactured goods in the country, on the planet. We were the biggest importer of everybody else's raw materials. And we were the biggest creditor in the world. Now, in 2012, well, he wrote the book last year, we're the biggest exporter of our own raw materials to other countries. We're the biggest importer of everybody else's manufactured goods. And we're the biggest debtor on the planet. If you want more of the same old, somebody who's going to be go along, get along, talking about on fracking, well, I don't see a lot of space between the president's position and mine. No, Barack Obama is wrong to promote hydrofracking. No, Barack Obama is wrong to promote free trade. That's not the change we can believe in. That's not transformational. 10 years ago, Barack Obama said he was for single payer. So he told the Illinois AFL-CIO Central Labor Council. FDR said, make me do it. You have an opportunity here in the 19th Congressional District. You have an opportunity. I talk about the grassroots campaign. I tell you what, 6 weeks ago, we launched in Otsego County headquarters. The whole county is covered with phone calls. We are making miracles happen on a shoestring. The front page of the Kingston Times is all about can Tyner catch Schreibman. Why does it say that? We got a little bit of momentum. With 1/10 of this man's money, we got the big Mo. I'm not saying that we have Big Mo endorsing us, Maurice Injury. But we got momentum. We can do this. It's up to you.
Thanks. Let's actually focus on the question that's critical to the folks who are here in these communities, and that's getting the economy going again. I have had the opportunity to travel around the entire district over the past several weeks, the past few months, and talk to many people who are in an economy that is providing anxiety and uncertainty, where jobs are uncertain, when we're still living at a time when an illness could mean losing a home, where an illness could mean losing your child's college fund. Congress can take one big step to improving the economy for everyone by changing the way that it thinks about the economy. We need an economy that thinks about what is good for the American worker first and foremost. So what does that mean? Number one, here, that means focusing on our local economies, building on the strengths that we have here. More and more, what I hear from our small business owners and our farmers is that the reason Washington doesn't work for them is that it listens only to the loudest and biggest voice that's in its ear. It listens to the noise from the lobbyists and the corporations that have all of the advantages and can take those advantages. And so what does that mean? It means our small businesses lose funding for rural broadband, lose access to capital because the congressman has voted against both of those. And instead we give tax credits to companies that ship jobs overseas. It means we lose that manufacturing base. It means we reward companies that are seeing record profits while cutting jobs, with allowing them to pay no income tax. We need a focus on a congressman who goes to Washington and says, what is right and fair? How do we make a fair economy? Not with a tax code that continues to reward only the most wealthy folks and pushes the burden onto us. So we need to end the Bush tax cuts on the wealthiest Americans. We need to end those tax breaks for the companies that are sending jobs offshores. And we need absolutely fair trade, not unregulated free trade. The negotiated agreements that we have been reaching in the past several years have spent too little effort ensuring that there are environmental and labor protections in the countries that we propose to deal with. And as a result of that, we harm our entire environment globally. We hurt the human rights of workers overseas while losing jobs here in America. So we absolutely need a greater focus on fair trade, properly protected trade agreements, rules and regulations that work for the little folks that run their small businesses and their farms, because in this district we have only family farms, not agribusiness, and turn the focus away from only the loudest. I take with tremendous seriousness and responsibility that I will be a voice for an extraordinarily rural community, and that's the voice that needs to be heard there. Thank you.
Hang on to that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hey, we heard by indirection some comments about health care and the current concerns about health care in the country. I know there are concerns, serious concerns about the health care policy and finance in this community. There's a pendency of U.S. Supreme Court decision that could halt or even reverse the president's, not the president's, the recently passed health care legislation. I'd ask each candidate to talk about their point of view about the current health care policy and what alternatives they would advance or recommend, or whether they're supportive of the policy as adopted. I'll start with Mr. Schreibman for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I support absolutely universal access to good quality health care. That is the objective that we on our side of the fence have been working for so long, and that we have finally made some steps to achieving. So let's be clear about the current healthcare plan. It was supported by doctors and nurses and hospitals and opposed by the big insurance companies. I trust doctors and nurses to know what's right for our healthcare system, and having recently been endorsed by the American Nurses Association, I'm pleased to say that they know that I know what's right for that system and will work hard for it. That is not to say by any means that the so-called Obamacare plan is perfect. But what stage we are at right now is defending this achievements that we've made in the past few years. Congressman Gibson has voted to allow health insurance companies to discriminate based on pre-existing conditions. He would put us back to a time, and has voted to do so, when young people in an economy where it's so hard for young people to get a job can't remain on their parents' insurance through the age of 26. So we need to absolutely defend the achievements that we have while continuing to work toward that universal access to health coverage that we also need, so that we, again, do not live in a time when the emergency medical situation leads you to fear losing your home. And part of that is defending the best health care insurance system that we have, which is Medicare. I had a very personal experience with Medicare over the last few years of my father's life. And one of the easiest things that we had in what was otherwise a horrible process was to be able to go to any doctor anywhere and say Medicare and move on from there. You check that box and don't worry anymore. And at the same time, one of the worst experiences I had with Medicare was figuring out the prescription drug benefit. I'm being cut off, so I won't go into the details, but I'm sure you all experienced how hard it was to figure out that so-called Republican reform. So, thank you.
Yes. Whoops. Hello. Hello. A little silent. Somebody turned it off before I got to it. Yes, the Obama plan, the Affordable Health Care Act, it's better than nothing. You know, 33 million people getting health insurance coverage is nothing to sneeze at. Kids up to 26, the health insurance coverage facilitated and enabled. Pre-existing conditions dealt with. Those are all good things. But again, even after I directly challenged Julian to come out for single payer, he doesn't want to say it. What that means is, and he's singing the praises of Medicare. Medicare is wonderful. That's why everybody should be able to have it. Maurice Hinchey has spent decades standing up and fighting for that. He obviously doesn't want to continue that fight. The torch is not being passed on unless you vote for me and work for me on healthcare issue. 8 years ago, there was an article in The Nation magazine by Morton Mintz, single payer, good for business, talking about economic development again. And again, there's been a sort of a litany of endorsements. I think one of the reasons why I've had a number of folks endorse me is because I am for single payer. I am for bringing back FDR's Glass-Steagall Act. I do agree with Maurice Hinchey on those issues, unlike my opponent. Pete Seeger's endorsed my campaign. Cornel West has endorsed my campaign. Medea Benjamin, Jason West here in New Paltz. Quite a few.
Please try to be responsive to the question in the time given.
Sure. Can I just ask why Julian was allowed to mention his endorsements numerous times, but you stopped me from mentioning my endorsements?
Well, yes, you can, but I won't answer.
That was not fair, Mr. Benjamin.
The fact was that he did that at a time where he was qualifying himself, and he had that discretion. You're doing it at a time we're asking you to be specifically responsive to a question. So you're doing it at the wrong time. Additionally, you will have time at the end of the debate to be summative and to talk about your endorsements. So if you'll be tolerant and allow fairness, we'll proceed.
You know, listen, the fix has been in. The fix has been in for this campaign for a long time. I wasn't supposed to be around this long. It's pretty obvious what's going on here. But I'm asking you folks, you know, the other side has a lot of money, but we have the people. Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. With all due respect.
With great frequency, when I look out the window of my office, I see the flag flying at half-mast. It's hard for me to allow a debate over accession to a position in Congress where national and international policy is made without asking at least one question about the candidate's attitude toward the role of the United States in the world and their view about the relative success of the current administration, which is an administration of the party they are in and seek to join in Washington if they're elected. Additionally, there is a world crisis in finance that has not been discussed that is fundamentally involving this country and could lead to its great difficulty. So I would ask, in general, for 3 minutes on the candidate's attitudes towards the current direction of American foreign policy, with some attention to the United States' involvement in resolution of the world economic crisis we face. Mr. Tyner.
I'm going to share with you folks an open secret. You know, I think a lot of you do listen to Northeast Public Radio, WNC, as I do, and you may have heard Chris Gibson talk about our troops are in too many countries. Now, why am I saying something halfway over? Just because you're not stupid. So I think if a Democrat is going to beat Chris Gibson, they cannot afford to, I mean, on a moral level, but also on a political level, I think we need a Democratic candidate who's going to call for all of our troops to come home now. All right, Jeff Cohen has endorsed my campaign. I hope you don't mind me saying that. Well, he spoke in Woodstock on my behalf a couple weeks ago. This country, we have 5% of the world's population, and we spend 50% of the world's military budget. Where's the peace dividend? I've been an activist for 20 years, unlike certain other people. All right, I remember back in the mid-90s, the American Friends Services Committee sending around information about the peace dividend. You know, Barack Obama has escalated the war in Afghanistan and Pakistan. I never worked for the CIA. Anybody know about the CIA drones in Pakistan that have killed 500 civilians and over 150 children? Do you want to send somebody to Washington who's going to keep their lips zipped about the CIA drones? They're winning friends and influencing people, right? I'm sure they're making those Pakistan folks and Afghanistan folks happy with us, you know, destroying weddings and everything else. All our troops need to come home now. And I'll say something else. I don't know if you've seen the bumper sticker. IRA, not the Irish Republican Army, but IRA, and then the Q is turning to an N. Somebody needs to go to Washington to speak the truth about the Middle East, okay? My brother converted to Judaism. I held the Torah for my niece's bat mitzvah. But guess what? I read Rabbi Michael Lerner's Tikkun magazine. I go to jewishvoiceforpeace.org. And in January, the New York Times, in the middle of January, had a piece from the Program on International Policy Attitudes. There was a poll that 65% of Israeli Jews say the entire Middle East should be free of nuclear weapons. That's 65% of Israeli Jews say the entire Middle East should be free of nuclear weapons. And that same poll, Program on International Policy Attitudes, University of Maryland, same poll found that 64% of Israeli Jews say the entire Middle East should be free of nuclear weapons, even if that means Israel has to give up its 200 nuclear weapons. Why is Joel bringing that? I'll be honest with you. There's plenty of people on my campaign staff every other week that, Joel, you can't talk about that. I'm talking about it. Because Ulster County just had Rabbi Michael Lerner at the Woodstock congregation a month or 2 or 3 ago. It's killing me that I missed it. I'm sick and tired of Democrats who read The Nation and read The Progressive and da-da-da and all these progressive publications, but you can't speak truth to power. It's not being anti-Israel. It's not being anti-Semitic. It's not being anti-Jew. 2/3 of Jews in Israel say the center cannot hold, we cannot continue what's going on. Wouldn't it be nice to send somebody to Washington to actually talk about that?
served in World War II, all of my uncles served in World War II, and I had the opportunity to serve in my own small way as a lawyer at the Central Intelligence Agency, helping bring known terrorists to justice through our civilian courts. So it's an area I've had some experience with and know something about. And the fact is we are overextended. An area where I disagree with our president, although he's had a number of foreign policy successes, is his continuation of our military presence in Afghanistan. I believe we need to and should end that now and bring our troops home in a safe and orderly fashion as quickly as we can. It's good foreign policy. It's also, by the way, good for the budget. So let's end that and bring that to a conclusion. And let's look everywhere about the emphasis that grew out, especially the Bush administration, of foreign policy only by military. We need all aspects. We need our strong military, but we also need strong diplomacy. And we need to be able to talk to people and be respected. And it is definitely true that dropping bombs from the air on a wedding is the best way to build enemies for America, not a way to make us more secure. But there are other avenues of foreign policy as well that Jerry's question raised and that Mr. Tyner didn't address. There is a significant economic crisis at the water's edge in Europe brewing right now. And it's brewing in large part because Europe has followed the policies that the Republicans would enforce to a great extent here in the United States. And if that continent continues to have its economies fail, we can see even greater hardship coming to our shores unless we are vigilant, unless we watch closely what they're doing, learn from it, learn what not to do. And in particular, that means not following more of the Tea Party economic agenda here. So foreign policy, sure, is about wise use and wise non-use of military force. It's also about wise use of economic force when necessary, about standing up for our currency and not allowing other countries to manipulate their currency and harm our job situation. It's about ensuring that when other countries fail to handle their sovereign debt crises, that it doesn't ripple over to America and interfere with our ability to grow. So it's not, you cannot be a one-note person when it comes to foreign policy. You've got to look at the whole picture, understand it, and bring a level-headed and firm approach. That's what I would do.
Thank you. I'd invite the audience to recognize the value of the remarks they heard from these candidates before we proceed, as we've reached just about the 1 hour point. So. Now, at this juncture, if there are people who have to leave for some reason, if they could quickly and quietly do that, that would be appropriate. We are going to we have 2 more things to do. We're going to take some questions from the audience, and then we're going to allow 3 minutes each so candidates can bring forward. Did I get that wrong, Casey? 2 minutes each so the candidates can provide summative remarks of their own choosing and their own emphasis. Having completed this part, Mr. Schreibman has to leave promptly. I understand Mr. Tyner can remain only a little longer.
I got all day.
So we will do the questions from the audience at this juncture. I think Laura Wall, she has a microphone, or will shortly have a microphone. So if you indicate your wish to ask a question by raising your hand, we will bring the mic to you. I will recognize you. Please give your name and your question. Keep your question brief and in the form of a question. Laura, are you ready?
Could I just,
yes, go ahead.
If you wiggle that mic, it makes that loud.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
You can put it back on your.
It doesn't work when I put it on.
Then let the candidates.
Sorry for discommoding you. So the person you're standing behind, yes. Please give your name and ask your question.
Yes, my name is Kelly McKenzie. I have a question for both candidates. If you were elected to Congress, would you either vote for, sponsor, or author legislation to abolish corporate personhood?
Should we repeat the question?
The question is, if you're elected to Congress, will you vote for, author, or sponsor legislation to abolish corporate personhood? I'm going to ask Mr. Schreibman to answer first. 2 minutes on this, please.
Thank you. We may be able to do this in less than 2 minutes. Corporate personhood, as it has come to be known and abused by laws in this country, should be ended. There is nothing in the Declaration of Independence, when we speak about the rights of people to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that puts corporations in that category of human beings who are entitled to those rights. So yes, I would absolutely work to curtail the expansion of treating corporations like humans at a time when the Tea Party and other Republicans are not treating humans as well as they should be treated in this country. So we need a policy that focuses on what's good for real working people and not what focuses on what's good for and gives rights to the largest corporations in America. So corporations have their place. I'm not anti-corporation. Corporations have a role in our economy and our business, not a role to have the same rights as human beings have.
Yes, I would. And maybe I shouldn't say this, but I try to be honest with people. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, I heard Julian on WHPW saying very strongly that he would push to amend the Constitution to make it clear that corporations aren't people. I think there's a bunch of progressives in the room. It's like, I don't know why he's running away from that, and I probably shouldn't be saying it because I'm running as the progressive. But he seems to be running away from that position. If you go to my website, it's duchessdemocracy.blogspot.com. Okay, go to January 2010. Now, Obama has spoken out against Citizens United. 80% of people in this country, according to a January 2010 poll, ABC News, Washington Post, are opposed to it. We're all opposed to it, but there are fixes. And Maurice Hinchey, right here, has been one of the leaders in this country saying the Constitution needs to be amended. Corporations aren't people. I don't know why we didn't hear that from Julian, and he said that 5 or 6 weeks ago on WHPW, but that is what it is. Also, we need Clean Money, Clean Elections campaign finance reform. FairElectionsNow.org is the national version of that. Maine and Connecticut, they got something like 70–80% of those state legislators are elected using this system. Truck drivers, waitresses are running for office. Democracy, it's right on those, Kelly, thank you for asking this, it's right on my campaign literature, it's right on my website, and it would really help if the Democratic candidate for Congress was picking up the ball on that and picking up the torch. I would also say, talk about democracy in general. I got on the front page of the Millbrook Independent a couple of months ago on this issue because I did a press conference in front of Chris Gibson's Red Hook office challenging him to the same Elizabeth Warren, Scott Brown challenge to limit the influence of super PACs. I would hope that Mr. Schreibman would do that as well. I did a similar press conference in Kingston recently, nobody covered that. But there's also, just so folks, when we're talking about democracy, you know, people power instead of corporate power, there are some other debates that the AUW has organized this week. I don't see Mr. Schreibman agreeing to those, so.
Over here, Laura Gilbrenner. It's coming. It's right behind you.
Since one of the candidates brought
Say your name, Gil.
Oh, Gil Brenner, New Paltz resident. Since one of the candidates brought up the Middle East, nuclear-free zone, on July 1st, the European Union is going to have a total boycott of Iranian oil. This is fairly well known. It's been published in a few places. What would you, since you're going to Congress and will deal with international issues, what would happen if the Iranians blocked the Persian Gulf? How would you react?
I'm not sure how I'd react, honestly. And I know that, you know, I'm all about green jobs. I used to be the environmental committee chair for the Dutchess County Legislature before the Tea Party took out half of my colleagues. And pushing for green jobs, you know, zero waste, solar. But the way we are right now, unfortunately, too much of the country runs on oil. I'm not really ready, though, to say, well, we're just going to have to send our troops over there because, you know, does anybody remember this? I hope I'm not the only person who remembers this. 5 or 10 years ago, the bumper sticker is pretty widespread and rampant. How did our oil get under their soil? You know what I mean? It's like, it's just sort of, you know, I don't I'm not looking to see the world economy crumble or collapse with that, but on the other hand, it sort of doesn't feel right to me to answer then, well, we're just going to enter World War III. Also, just about the European crisis, I was criticized for not answering a question properly. Germany has not been nice to the rest of Europe as far as forcing austerity down their throats. But if you look at Germany itself, I've actually spoken on the phone with Tom Gagan, who wrote a book called Were You Born on the Wrong Continent? In Germany, the corporations, and there's lots of them that are very successful, the unions directly elect 1/2 of the members of the boards of directors. And the unemployment rate is it's at least 1 or 2 percentage points now lower in Germany. It's 6.7% unemployment rate. And they got nice wages, health care, pensions, benefits are because the middle class has not been killed. About a decade ago, I stopped talking about, we got to stop these attacks on the middle class. Because so many people are like, no, Joel, no, there is no middle class anymore. There is no middle class anymore. So I know that's a little bit far afield, but you got me going there.
Okay, I remind the candidates that brief questions will allow more questions to be asked in a limited amount of time, and focused answers will also permit that.
I'll give a focused answer.
Is it your turn? Sorry. Well, that was a great brief answer.
Thoughts for Jeff. Look, the fact that we have to sit here in rural New York and wonder what will happen to us if Iran blockades a small strait half a world away emphasizes the need to redouble our efforts for alternative and renewable fuels that we have here at home. And I'm absolutely committed to continuing the extraordinary work that Maurice Hinchey has done in this area to nurture a solar energy industry here in the Hudson Valley and promote those alternative energies around the United States. I agree that no congressional candidate should be speculating about what to do in a hypothetical crisis 2 years from now. I'm sure that the president at that time, should it happen, will have a response brought that we will consider very closely. The important thing that I think is to remember when we speak about what could happen in that region is to remind ourselves that we are the most powerful nation on earth with the greatest Army, Navy, Air Force capacity, and that Iran is not a military competitor or a serious military threat to the United States at this time. So it is a tactical circumstance. Obviously, we must never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapons capacity. But when you're talking about a regional conflict there, I know that our country has the capacity to address it. And the issue is, will we address it with the sophistication and sensitivity that the situation would require, or will we be, if Mitt Romney is elected, faced with George Bush Part 2 of blundering and blustering and threatening to blow anyone up that they can find? Unfortunately, there's that risk, but our president that we have now has shown a steady course, and I think we would see that in a situation like that as well.
Laura, this person, this lady right here,
Sheila Finan.
No, yeah, you'll be next, ma'am. I'm sorry. Sorry.
I can't see who you're pointing.
Yeah, I have a two-part question actually, because oh dear, what do you do? Okay, I did say my name, Sheila Finan. Okay, so in this climate in which we see we see so much corruption and greed and waste. Maybe it's not the most that there's ever been, but it's certainly up there, and maybe it is the most. There are a few people who let us know about this, and they're called whistleblowers. They are being absolutely persecuted by this administration. What would your position be with regard, say, Bradley Manning, who many of us, maybe not all of your constituents, but many of us feel should be getting a Nobel Peace Prize? So there's that, and then there's also the army in Egypt. We've just seen what we've been doing since the revolution in Egypt is funding that army without a break and without diminishing it. Would you still keep funding it given its recent coup?
So that's a two-part question. Would you answer both parts, Mr. Schreibman?
Thank you, Sheila. The issue of whistleblowers and sources is one that I know well as a prosecutor, and frankly, having been in the national security world, you need people who have information, who can right wrongs, to be able to come forward without fear of retribution. It's true in the national political sense. Frankly, it's true in the labor organizing sense, where anywhere where there's a risk of power being used to suppress people's exercise of their rights and liberties, you need to be able to create an environment where folks can come forward and provide that information securely and be able to not fear that they'll be persecuted. I can tell you, unfortunately, you're right. You see a lot of pushback to people who speak truth to power. There was a tremendous amount of corruption, for example, in the Iraq and Afghanistan reconstruction process. And a woman who came forward about that within the structure lost her job and was demoted. So we definitely have to be out of the habit of punishing people who come forward to do things for the betterment of our country and do exactly what you describe, a whistleblowing. At the same time, we also have to understand that leaks cause real harm if done in the wrong way, in the wrong time, and indiscriminately. I spoke to someone here today before the debate started who'd had a career in our national security realm, who was outed while overseas as a result of a book that was published, and whose life was endangered by that. So the delicate balance between the opportunity to speak freely and raise issues about what's wrong and make our country a better place, at the same time is balanced by those rare occasions where folks' lives can be endangered. So to me, you err on the side of whistleblowing, but it is an area you have to tread carefully.
Bradley Manning should get the Nobel Peace Prize. I've been campaigning for this office since last August, and in recognition of the fact that maybe I wouldn't I wouldn't have all the money in the world to do it, so I knew that in order to win a primary, if there was going to be one, that I had to really get supercharged progressive activists to like me and support me all over. So even, I don't know, it was last fall or so, up in, I think it was Albany County, Del Mar perhaps, Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace, there was a huge event about Bradley Manning. There's been a national sort of solidarity tour, and I attended that event, actually. And if you go to my website, which is duchessdemocracy.blogspot.com, you can actually see a blog post. So I would tend to agree with the likes of Michael Moore that we need more people like Bradley Manning that are willing to put their lives on the line. So that's that. As far as military aid to countries like Egypt, I'm not in favor of that. There's far too much military aid that our tax dollars have been used for that are just stirring up more trouble and causing more problems. You know, Bradley Manning exposed civilians being killed. Bradley Manning exposed drone strikes, possibly CIA drone strikes. And talking about whistleblowing, I don't know if anybody saw the July 2010 Washington Post poll, the article, Top Secret America. 1,271 government organizations, 1,931 private companies at 10,000 locations in counterterrorism, homeland security, and intelligence, national security agency intercepting or storing 1.7 billion emails, calls, and texts, 72 fusion centers that can secretly spy on us. I have never worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. I think we need to send people to Washington who unapologetically will promise and vow and make a commitment to be a watchdog on the CIA and the ever-expanding national security state instead of a defender lapdog.
Yes, I promise to recognize this person next. Please give
Lucille
me
Weinstadt is my name. I have a two-part question also. One, what is your feeling about rendition, which is sending suspected terrorists overseas to be tortured because you're not allowed to torture them in this country, so they send them to other countries? That's one question. The other question is the military budget. As Mr. Tyner said, 50% of the world's military budget is the United States. We spend 50% of the money. It's also costing, in my opinion, it's also one of the things that is wrecking the United States economy.
Please form the question.
Okay, what is your opinion on these questions?
there should be no rendition, and I believe the CIA has been involved in that. I never worked for the CIA under President Barack Obama. I never worked for the CIA under George W. Bush, unlike my opponent. And I know that rendition, even a friend of mine from Columbia County has pointed out that rendition has been involved. I think the Washington Post has reported on rendition being involved in an airport in Columbia County. The military budget, again, I have here an inspiration. Where have the flowers gone? I was at Pete Seeger's house. I've known him for over 30 years on Friday morning. And I think one of the reasons why I have the support of so many longtime community activists, committed folks like Pete Seeger, is I want to stop the war machine. Enough is enough. You know, I don't know why. Look, I'm voting, believe it or not, probably everybody in this room does not think that I'm voting for Barack Obama this year, but he was not, he got the Nobel Peace Prize after sending 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan. Up is down and down is up. You know, it's just, it really doesn't make any sense. Also, I do want to give Julian credit because he beat me to the punch on a few other issues that I've been working long on, and actually I've been in the media on the solar issue. Germany has less sunlight than we do. They have solar panels all over the place. And on broadband, I just did a press conference a week ago up in Schoharie County in Jefferson about the telecommunications industry is making profits up the yin-yang. There's no reason why everybody should not have broadband. And I'll talk a little bit about farming later if it's okay with Mr. Bench.
As I promised, you'll get 3 minutes at the end to talk about whatever you want to talk about, even the weather. Mr. Schreibman.
Thanks. Look, let's speak seriously for a minute here. As long as we're repeating this, Julian worked for the CIA, Julian worked for the CIA. Yeah, I was an attorney at the Central Intelligence Agency, a civil servant, a nonpartisan public servant, working to help protect and defend the United States, including by helping bring al-Qaeda terrorists to justice in our civilian criminal courts where they should be. And the issues that Mr. Tyner raises about abuses at the Central Intelligence Agency and elsewhere arise at the policy levels of George Bush and Dick Cheney, where they should be, and two people who shouldn't have been there. So my role as a lawyer was to ensure that that agency followed the law. That was the mission that I believe in and support. So let's talk now about what we can really do. And I can assure you that I'm not a lapdog for anybody, but I will be a watchdog for the defense and national security budget, and it's an area I know a little something about. And let's give it a quick example that we saw in the news just recently. We all know how hard it is to find funding for science in America. NASA's been trying to replace the Hubble Space Telescope, can't do it. Well, who knew? The National Reconnaissance Office, a little-known agency in the national security establishment, had 2 Hubble-class telescopes sitting in a warehouse that it had never gotten around to launching into space. Who was watching the budget when they asked for those, without looking at whether they were even going to be used? That's the kind of waste that drives Americans crazy, when we could have had advances in scientific research, but our intelligence apparatus asked for things they didn't need and got them because no one was paying attention, and there to say no. Well, I'll be there to watch, I'll know the difference, I'll know where to look, and I'll make a difference.
Where's this gentleman here, Laura?
Henry Muller. The Medicare has a little problem in the future of finances. How would you solve this problem?
Mr. Schreibman.
Thank you. You actually gave me a great opportunity to continue the story that I began in answer to an earlier answer, which was that Medicare was wonderful to me and my family when we needed it, with the exception of the prescription drug benefit, which is, as a lawyer, you know, the thing was written by lawyers. I thought I'd have a leg up figuring the thing out. But sitting around the kitchen table with my dad and trying to figure out what thing we would choose, when all we really wanted to choose was being able to have coverage for the drugs, was insane. And when you look at that, what you see in it is a gimmick that caused us a huge budgetary problem. And it's the first thing we could fix to put Medicare on firmer foundation. It's something that in Congress could do immediately. And that's allow Medicare to negotiate with the big pharmaceutical companies, which as a result of the Bush administration's initiative was written into law that they could not do, costing us tens of billions of dollars every year over time. So there is one concrete step right off the bat to reduce what are the costs of Medicare. But on top of that, here's what we know about Medicare. It's the most effective health insurance plan at controlling costs. So the issue isn't so much how you control the cost of Medicare, it's how do you control the escalating costs of health care. Medicare does a pretty good job of reining its costs in relative to other health insurance. But it's those escalating costs of health care, the over testing, overuse, over driving of many in that health insurance driven area that is driving costs upward. And so Medicare is obviously a part of that solution, and there are things we can do to improve Medicare, but we need to fix the larger picture too.
Got it. Joel?
Thank you. Today's New York Times, the editorial, Fiscal Cliff's Notes, and it talks about the need for quote-unquote entitlement reform. And I have 99% on my purple and white lawn signs, you know, purple and white, red and blue mixed together, post-partisan. I have 99% on the lawn signs because Michael Moore said this in Madison, Wisconsin last March. The richest 1% of people in this country have more wealth than the other 150 million of us combined. There should be no budget cuts. You know, I actually walked because I knew that Andrew Cuomo was going to do great things for marriage equality. But even the New York Times in May of 2010 was telling us that Andrew Cuomo was going to give us the shaft when it came to the property tax cap and the millionaire's tax and funding for our schools. So I walked 12 days, 140 miles in the hot sun, if you didn't read yesterday's Albany Times Union, from the New York Stock Exchange in New York City up to Albany 2 years ago, because FDR did not get us out of the Depression with budget cuts, layoffs, and union busting. There's no reason at all whatsoever to cut Medicare. Julian Schreibman knows it's a great program. I don't know why, again, and I'm asking you folks to wake up if you haven't woken up yet. For decades, you've had an incredible congressman named Maurice Nitschke, who has been fighting for Medicare for all. Max Feinstein, Connie Holland, Paul Miller, they're not here anymore. I'm here. Art Richter points out that Medicare, the overhead in Medicare, is actually less money, national, than what the HMOs, the overhead is just for New York State alone. All right? So I would just say that we don't need to cut Medicare at all. And I would be a principled, very strong voice. That's why we're doing a press conference actually today. We're doing a rally in front of the FDR site. I invite you all to join me on Route 9 in Hyde Park, because it's atrocious what too many Republicans and Democrats have put Medicare and Social Security on the chopping block.
We'll take one more question. The lady in the back, please.
My name is Jean McAvery. I'd like to know what your position is on Medicare reimbursement for integrative modalities of health care. For example, acupuncture, massage therapy, and that type of care.
Joel?
I'm all for that. Look, I'm not gonna lie. My parents were hippies in the 60s, all right? So there's all sorts of alternative healing ways, and long ago we should have made sure that they're all legally covered. Under current reimbursements and under single-payer Medicare for all. It's funny, you mentioned the Medicare reimbursement ratio. That reminds me of, there's been a lot of media coverage of, I think, Stephen Lundquist, the head of the New York Health Alliance, and the Kingston Hospital. And again, David Lundquist, excuse me. Well, I was actually there at the Holiday Inn in Kingston for the Chamber of Commerce presentation. And Mr. Lundquist said something very curious. I don't know if anybody in the media picked it up. He talks about, I think, the Center for Medicare Services, or CMS, basically. He was able to convince them that it's ridiculous that you folks here are discriminated against. Hospitals in Ulster County have this crappy reimbursement ratio, while the ones in Dutchess. The reason why I bring this up is Lundquist mentioned the current political environment The current political environment made it impossible. What's the current political environment is one where even Paul Krugman on August 1st last year said that basically it was abject surrender and capitulation that Obama did to the Tea Party. Where even Bill Clinton and Katrina Vanden Heuvel were talking about all these different ways to raise the debt ceiling. So I'm just saying that I'm not go along, get along. I never have been, never will be. And the reason why, you can ask Mr. Gibson this next time, or too many Democrats who are afraid to raise hell with Barack Obama, the reason why we don't have the current political environment to make sure that Kingston and Benedictine Hospital can stay open and that schools in Dutchess and Ulster County aren't shutting down is because too many Democrats are afraid to speak truth to power to Mr. Cuomo and to Mr. Obama.
It's straightforward. Medicare should cover what works to make people's health better and make their lives better. And if there's doubt about what that is, we should be supporting research to ensure that we know what's making people's lives better and the quality of their lives better. We know that the cost of healthcare is driven by end-of-life costs in the last few weeks. We know that many forms of traditional medicine are very expensive relative to the things that you were describing. So when we talk about a crisis of medical care costs, we need to look at alternative ways to treat people, to bring them to a period of health, not sickness, and to improve the quality of life. And so Medicare shouldn't be discriminating against things that work, and we should ensure that we're doing everything we can do to know what works so that we can support it and can make the quality of life better.
Thank you. Now we're going to get summary comments from each candidate. Before we get to do that, I want to thank the audience for its courtesy and attention. I also want to remind you all that there is an election tomorrow, and a budget election tomorrow for the Highland and New Paltz school budgets. So that's something to attend to.
Is one other reminder?
Highland, I think both tomorrow.
All right, for Woodland Pond people, I hope there will be a bus into that. We also need, for absentee ballots to vote in the primary, a week from tomorrow, they need to have those absentee ballot applications in by today.
Okay, so people.
Tomorrow morning.
So you should immediately attend to filing for an absentee ballot if you wish to vote in the primary, and Dorothy has those.
And we'll leave them with the concierge, where you can pick them up. Right. They have to be the ones that are from the I'll explain it to you. If you want one, ask me later.
Okay, Dorothy can help you with your absentee ballot. Okay, now I think Mr. Schreibman, you started out, so I think I'm going to turn to Joel here for 3 minutes. Mr. Tyner, I should say.
In spite of my being a little bit ornery, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Benjamin, and thank you, Julian and Mr. Schreibman, for this opportunity. Look, I've been a community activist for 20 years. Honestly, I never even expected necessarily I'd get elected to anything. I was after, but I got elected in 2003. I got re-elected 4 times. I actually, in the middle of my 5th term, believe it or not, serving the Dutchess County Legislature, Rhinebeck and Clinton, where, yes, there have been Republican town supervisors named Jeff Burns and Thomas Trout. So I know you may be thinking, how did this guy get elected in 2 towns 5 times, or there have been Republican town supervisors? And others who seem like the most egotistical person in the world. It's because people believe in me. It's like Maurice Hinchey. You have a choice, all right? You have a choice to send somebody to Washington who's going to pick up the torch. Maurice Hinchey has that torch there. Taking on the HMOs in the insurance industry and big pharma, single-payer Medicare for all. With all due respect, Julian's not carrying that torch. Let's bring back FDR's Glass-Steagall Act. Break up the big banks. Tax Wall Street speculation. Well, Maurice Hinchey, Elizabeth Warren, John McCain. I started a petition 4 years ago to bring back FDR's Glass-Steagall Act, break up the big banks, separate commercial banking from investment banking, stop them from speculating with their savings. I don't hear him talking about that. Those are 2 big Maurice Hinchey issues. I didn't make them up. Why isn't he talking about that? And on the fracking issue, I'm sorry, but with all due respect, I don't think, Julian, that you've seen that movie. That's my gift this afternoon. It's a movie called Gasland by Josh Fox. Don't believe me. Confirm it, verify it for yourself. Go to WAMC's website, Google it, Yahoo, search it, whatever. April 17th, Alan Chartock asks Julian about fracking, and Julian says, in terms of the impact, I think the jury's still out. Period, ipso facto, you're losing the primary on that. I'm sorry. Because there's been game, even in yesterday's Albany Times-Union, there's more quotes where it's more waffling. People don't like that. People want a clear, cogent, strong response. I'm asking you folks to work with me to send me to Washington. People are tired of the sick old, same old, same old. There's been, I'm not going to say their names, but there's so many county Democratic chairs. I wasn't even allowed to speak before the Ulster County Democratic Committee. And I'll say something else. The American Association of University Women has organized a number of debates. He's too busy for them. On April 20th, I sent an email letter saying, please, there's 8 weeks to go before the June 26th primary. Don't you think the people in 11 counties deserve public debates? But I've been treated like a little, you don't have any money. I'm sorry I don't have any money. Is this what the Democratic Party's become? Apparently so. Well, I will be at those debates. And we're talking about tomorrow at 5 p.m. at Rhinebeck Village Hall, Wednesday 3 p.m. at Woodstock Community Center, and Wednesday 4 o'clock at New Paltz Village Hall, and also tomorrow in Rensselaer County. And you need to be there, Julian. You need to be there. And you have disrespected me. You lost the Democratic majority in the Ulster County Legislature, and I'm elected 5 times in a row. You have disrespected me, sir. Show up for those debates.
Thank you, Jerry, again for moderating. Thank you, Dorothy, for organizing. Thank you all for coming today and giving me an opportunity to speak about why I'm running for Congress and why it's so important that we win this election. My family's been represented by Congressman Hinchy since I was 2 years old. I know what his legacy is, and I know the work that he's calling upon us to follow. But we are now running in a brand new swing district with a Republican incumbent. We've never been in this situation before. The consequences of this election are critical. We have a congressman now. We are inheriting a congressman who's voted to end Medicare as we know it. Done that already. Voted to defund Planned Parenthood. Done that already. Voted anti-choice every chance he could get. Done that already. Plans to keep doing it. And if we don't beat him this year, we aren't going to. I offer you something different. I offer you a strong platform of values, of fairness for all people, of inclusiveness for everyone in our American family, and for rebuilding jobs and the economy in this region, focusing on the small businesses and focusing on our families. And let me say this, you've heard from me a lot today, and you've simultaneously heard from someone telling you what I would say. So let me correct one fact, and you can go out and find that you can correct a lot of other facts. I've been in favor of putting Glass-Steagall back for years. I've talked about it for that time. I put out a statement clearly on my website not long ago, a few weeks back, clearly supporting returning us to Glass-Steagall. So let's listen to what the campaigns are saying. You haven't heard me talk a lot about what his positions are. I let Mr. Tyner do that. And you've heard me talk about what my positions are and what my values are. We've built a campaign with tremendous grassroots support across this district. Tremendous support from folks like Planned Parenthood, from folks like the labor movement, who know that I will be a champion for working people in these communities. It's where I come from, it's what I believe, it's where my values are. And I will beat Chris Gibson and put an end to the Tea Party influence in this region. So thank you again for this opportunity, and I look forward to continuing this conversation over the remainder of the primary period. We're going to be all over the district, and we're going to be talking to voters everywhere. We'll look forward to being here and talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, gentlemen, for this debate. Mr. Schreibman will have to leave. Mr. Tyner will be staying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. Pleasure to be here.
Julian, I think you just